Okay, so for now, for the regularly scheduled program, so I want to start. I think this is going to be a series because we're not going to have enough time to finish it tonight. So in light of Chavat Barzel, what's it called again? Iron Swords. Right? So I would like to speak about what we know from the sources, from the Torah, from what we know from thousands of years ago, that there has been this tradition that at the end of days that we're going to have a lot of beef with the Arabs. Okay, and they describe this, and I think that from the description of how they see this exile to be, this tension to be. So there's things that we can take out of it. Okay, and now I want to just put out very, very clearly that I'm not the kind of rabbi that says that we knew about the fact that there was going to be a war, and we know exactly what it takes to win the war, and this is I'm not talking about the future. I'm just talking about the present, and I'm just saying that I just want to try to research what it says in Chazal about this Milchama, about this whole situation. This is not new. This is very not new. That since the situation that exists right now is really since 1948. It changed. It changed in 1948, and we'll soon see that Chazal foresaw that something would change in 1948. I don't mean in 1948 per se, but I mean that there's something special about the fact that we created a state. Okay. So yeah.
So before Israel's state, you're saying like
there was always beef. There was always stress and tsaras that we had from the Arabs, but it very much escalated from the time that we have a state. That it's so. Okay, so first of all, let's go through where we see sources in our Chazal, in our sages, that there's such a thing as having problems from Ishmael. Okay, so everything in this class is assuming that the Arabs of today are connected and the descendants of Ishmael. Okay, and that is something that the Rambam assumed. And now, I don't know exactly if that's the. I know I saw some video going around that some Saudi Arabian Arabs are saying that the Palestinians in Gaza aren't real Arabs, and they're just a bunch of gypsies that were relocated and whatever. But let's assume that they're actually Arabs. And I think that after we finish everything we know about the sources in Chazal about the Arab tribe, so to speak, so then I would like to perhaps look into the Arab religion of Islam. That's that you were mentioning last week, that how perhaps that there is something about this final battle, which is this to really say for once and for all that what is the difference between the truth of Judaism versus the falsehood of Islam. Okay. But before that, so I want to go through the different sources to show that this is something which was foreseen, and because it's foreseen, meaning that there were nevuahs about this, and that this shows that this isn't a surprise. This didn't take us by surprise. That we actually had this tradition since before the Arabs were a problem. We had this tradition that they were going to be a problem. Okay. So it starts in the Zohar. The first verse is in the Zohar in Parshat Va'era. It says as follows: "V'atidim b'nei Ishmael la'orel mochamat chazakot ba'olam." That and this is the Zohar is from the times of the Tanaim. Okay, this is 2,000 years ago. Okay, so "V'atidim b'nei Ishmael la'orel mochamat chazakot ba'olam v'yitasfu bnei Adom aleihem v'yitkaru bahem milchama achat al hayam ve'achat al yabasha ve'achat samuch liYerushalayim. Okay, so the Bnei Ishmael are going to make big wars in the world, and they're going to be joined by Bnei Adom. Okay, Adom is a reference to Rome. Okay, it's a reference to Esav hu Adom, right? That was his name, and when we're talking about Edom, so we're talking about specifically Amalek, and from Amalek, so Amalek is found in Rome. Okay, so that's the statement of the Zohar, and he continues that, and the last krav, the last war is going to be on Yerushalayim. K'mo shekatuv, v'yasafti et kol hagayim al Yerushalayim l'melchama. Okay, now in the commentary of the Ramak of Moshe Cordovero and the Zohar, so he writes, v'yitavchu al Yisrael lashmid mipnei shekimu lahem malchut. That the reason why they're going to come against the Jewish people is because the Jewish people made for themselves a malchut, a kingdom, okay, or a nation. Okay, so this is what I was referring to. That the Ramak says, the Ramak already foresaw this, that this is talking about 600 years ago, that the reason why they're going to hate us so much is because we make for ourselves a nation. Okay, it's because we make for ourselves a country. So this is the first source. The first source is the Zohar. The Zohar says that the Bnei Ishmael is going to be a problem at the end of times. Okay. Source number 2, also from this time of the Tanaim. Okay, there's a book called Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. It's a famous Midrash. It's very mainstream. This is not some manuscript. This has been with us for. It's always been part of our tradition. Okay, Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. So in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, so there's two passages where he speaks about this. Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer was written by Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. Okay, one of the great Tanaim. He's also known as Rabbi Eliezer Haggadol. He's one of the great Tanaim, that he was the Rebbe of Hillel. He was the Rebbe of Hillel. Okay, so in the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, so two things that I want to speak about. First of all, that he brings as a commentary on the pasuk in Parshat Balak. Okay, in Parshat Balak, so we have this prophecy of Bilam Harasha, that Bilam is this non-Jewish prophet, that he comes to Balak, and Balak comes to him and he says, please, could you curse the Jewish people? And he says, I can't do anything against Hashem. And he tries 3 times. Each time Hashem turns the klalot into brachot. And then he says, that's it. You're through. I told you that I would reward you, but you Menach Hashem in kavod. Hashem doesn't want you to be rewarded. So he says, before I go, let me tell you what this nation, the Jews, is going to do to your nation, ba'acharit ha'amim. Okay, and starts giving this prophecy of what's going to be at the end of times. Okay, and so at the end of this prophecy, so there's a pasuk that says, "Oy, mi yichyeh misumo kel." Oy, who will live? Misumo kel. Okay, so what does this mean? Misumo kel. Who will live from the one? So the Rebbe Eliezer explains that Misumo El is a reference to Bnei Yishmael, because Yishmael and Yisrael are unique, that we are the only 2 nations that have the name El in our name. So Misumo El means that who will live from the nation that has El in his name, namely Ishmael. Okay, now there's a pasuk in Tehillim that Tfilah David bi'otoba marat Tfilah, that Per Kuf Lamed Tet, I think, that no, sorry, Kuf Mem Bet, I don't remember. And so it says over there that Hinei oivecha yemayun umisanecha nasurash. This is David HaMelech. This is David HaMelech prophesying about what's going to be in the future. And he says, Hinei oivecha yemayun, behold, your enemies are making a big tumult. Umisanecha, and the ones who hate you, nasurash, are rising up. Okay? So the commentaries say that oivecha, your enemies, elu b'nei Ishmael. Why are they the enemies? Because they're the oyev, enemy, is starts with the word oy. Oy. So that when it's oy, that Balak said, oy, mi yichya misumoel. So oyev is this. I say oy when I have an enemy. Okay. So there's a difference between an enemy. Enemy is worse than someone who hates me. Okay. Oyev is worse than soneh. Okay. So Yishmael is our oyev. Edom is our soneh. Okay. And oyev is worse. He's our arch enemy. He's our arch enemy. So this is number one. Okay. Number two. It says in Perkei Elazar, Lama nikra shemo Yishmael. Why is his name called Yishmael? She'atid HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because in the future, Hashem is going to be shomea b'kol na'akat ha'am. They're going to hear the tefillot, the na'akah, the crying out of the nation. Mima she'atin b'nei Yishmael la'asot ba'aretz ba'acharit hayamim. That the Bnei Ishmael are going to do something to us, ba'aretz, when we are living in Israel, ba'acharit hayamim, at the end of times, and they're going to do something so horrible to us, they're going to scream out, Lefikach shema Yishmael, lomar yishma kel v'ya'anim. That's why their name is Yishmael, meaning to say that Hashem will hear our prayers. Okay, that's how the Perkei Elazar understands this pasuk, Lama Shema Yishmael. Now, the commentaries on Perkei Elazar ask a simple question, and that is that if you look at the psukim, when Ishmael was born, so it's very clear that that's not the case, because what happens is that Abraham sends away Hagar and Ishmael, and they're dying of thirst, and so she's dying. She's praying to Hashem, and then the Malach, the angel, comes to Hagar and says, "You should call him Yishmael, ki shama Hashem b'kol anyech." That Hashem heard. I'm sorry, I think it's before this. It's the first time when she was pregnant. When she was pregnant, so Sarah was making fun of her, and so she was crying out to Hashem, and the Malach comes to her and says, "You should call this angel. You should call this boy Yishmael, because Hashem heard your anguish." Okay, so how can the Perkei Elazar say that it's clear that it's Hashem is hearing the prayers of Hagar, not the prayers of the Jewish people. So the answer that is why Hagar called Ishmael. But the truth is that if you look at the Pesukim, Abraham called his son Ishmael without any knowledge of this whole conversation between the Malach and Hagar. So when Abraham was calling Ishmael, he really had a different intention. And his intention was that the Hashem, Yishma kel v'yanem, that Hashem is going to listen to our prayers from what? From the atrocities that the Arabs are going to do to the Jewish people. Okay? So this is the third source. And I think if we stop here for a moment to note that we see from this that the essence of Yishmael is that they were put into this world to do bad things unto us, and the purpose of the bad things that they were to do unto us is for us to cry out to Hashem, and that's what it means, Yishma kel v'yaneh, that the Hashem, they were called Yishmael because Hashem is going to hear our voices through the fact that they put us into a corner. So this really puts into a new light the prayers that we are praying right now. The prayers that we have, that as a result of the fact that they are endangering us, the fact that they're sending rockets onto us, the fact that they've killed us and they're threatening to kill more of us, that this forces us to have a reality check. This forces us to daven like we've never davened before, and this is bringing out. This is how we defeat them. Meaning that the way that we're going to defeat Ishmael is not just that we have a great army. That it was predestined. This is already from the Torah. This is already from 3,400 years ago. That we're talking about that it was predestined. That the purpose of the tsaras, of all of the bad stuff that they're going to do to us, the purpose of it all was that we should daven. So our davening should not be underestimated at all. Okay, meaning like I think I shared last week. I think I shared last week that the Marsha and Brachas, that the Marsha and Brachas says that a person that sees the rock that Moshe stood on when he was fighting against Amalek. Right? You heard this? You said this? I said this here? No? So the Gemara says that a person that passes the rock on which Moshe Rabbeinu sat during the war against Amalek.
Where is this from? Jordan?
I don't know.
No.
So he has to say a bracha. That Baruch Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asa Neis Lavoteinu B'Makom Hazeh. Thank you, Hashem, for making a miracle. So the Marsha asked a simple question: that the miracle was that they beat Amalek. So they didn't beat Amalek in where he was sitting. They beat Amalek in the battlefield. So why? It should have said that the person that passes the battlefield makes a bracha. Asa Neis Lavoteinu. So the Marsha says that, you know what? The war was going on in the shul. The war was going on in. It says it really says that. It says Vayak Hasher Gavar Yadav Gavar Yisrael, that when his hands were up, so then they were davening and they had hope and they had emunah, and then they would succeed. And when his hands went down, then the Amalek would beat them. So it was really the battle was actually going on in the metaphysical. The battle was actually going on in the realm of tefillah, and it was through the tefillah that's what made that they were successful in the war. So it's that the source of the success in the war was, of course, you have to go to war, and then Yeshua took them to war. But the source of the success in the war was based on the success in the tefillah. Okay, so that's why the source of the nes was really in the rock that he was davening. So that's true by every war. That's true by everywhere. But by the war against Ishmael, by the war against the Arabs, so it's much, much more than that. That the entire essence is to put us into a predicament that we need to cry out to Hashem. So if we think that it's possible to defeat them without davening, so we're making a mistake, because that's their essence. Yishmael is that Hashem needs to hear our prayers. Okay, so it really puts all of the prayers that we are praying now into a brand new light. Okay, this is the prayer. This is our prayers. This is certainly the prayers of our holy chayalim before they go out. This is we're all right now in this state of just waiting, and it's we can't win without davening like we've never davened before. Okay, so this is the Lama Nikra Shema Yishmael. Okay, and the third and final source. They're not the only source, but these are what I think are the greatest sources, because these are the sources that are either from this first two was from the Tanaim, from the Zohar and the Picture of the Zohar, is from the Tanaim, and this third source is from Rav Chaim Vital, from the Arizal. Okay, so the Arizal, even though he was much later in history, he was only 500 years ago, but he knew secrets that the only way that he knew this was from a higher source. Okay, there's many things, the secrets of Kabbalah that he revealed, that the only way that he revealed is because he was taught things from the soul of Eliyahu Navi, from the soul of different tzaddikim. So he was privy to information that was not humanly possible. So that's why he's in a different league. Okay, it's like it's a level of Ruach HaKodesh which can be called prophecy. Okay, so Rav Chaim Vital has a sefer called Etadat, and so he Etadat Tov, and in the sefer, so he has a commentary on the parak of Tehillim, Kuf Chav Daled. Okay, it says in Tehillim Kuf Chav Daled. Let me read it for you. Shir Hama'alot LeDavid, Lulei Hashem Shehaya Lanu Yomarni Yisrael. That if not for Hashem that was there for us, so says Yisrael. Lulei Hashem Shehaya Lanu B'kum Aleinu Adam. That if not for Hashem for being there for us, when Adam came to get us. Okay, so what is this? So what is this referring to? So Rav Chaim Vital says that this is a reference. This is a reference to Ishmael. That Ishmael is the one who's called Adam, because on Ishmael it says, "V'hu yiyeh pere Adam." He will be a wild man. Okay, this is the angel telling Hagar, "V'hu yiyeh pere Adam." That before he's born, so he's called Adam. He's called a wild Adam. Okay, so Rav Chaim Vital writes that Aval od atidim Yisrael liot ba'acharit hayamim begalut Yishmael. That at the end of times, that the Jewish people are going to have to be under another exile, and that is galut Yishmael. That is the exile of Ishmael under the Arabs. V'galut chamishit azu. This is the fifth. This is the fifth galut. Shi achrona lukulam. This is the last of all exiles. Kashem mikulam. And it is worse than all of them. V'hu galut Yishmael hanikra per Adam. And this is the galut of Yishmael, who's called per Adam. Who's called this wild man. Okay. So this is the fifth. So the Rav Chaim Vital tells us from the Ari that this is a fifth galut, and this fifth galut is the last and final fight that we have to fight before the Geula, before Mashiach is going to come. So the question is that there's many sources to the fact that there are 4 galuyot, that there's 4 exiles. So the source of this is really in the Midrash. In the Midrash, it says in the very beginning of the pasuk, the very beginning of the Torah, it says v'haaretz hayta tohu vavahu v'choshech al pnei toham. So the Midrash says that tohu, that's a reference to Bavel. Vahu is a reference to Parasu Madai, to Persia. Okay. Choshech Zum Machut Yavan. This is Choshech as a reference to the Greeks. That's the story of Hanukkah. Sheichshichu et einayim Yisrael, that they darkened our eyes. Taham means the depths. Taham Zu Malchut Edom. This is a reference to the kingdom of Edom, of Rome. It looks like there's no end. Like the depths means because it's so long. It's so long that it seems like it's never going to end. So it's like there's great depths. So this is the Ruach Elokim Merachevet Apnei Haaretz Apnei Hamayim. So Zu Rucho Shel Mashiach. Okay, the Midrash says that's Ruach Elokim. That's a reference to Mashiach. That after these 4 Malchuyot, then there's going to be Mashiach. So the question is that and there's many times the Torah talks about, the Torah hints to the fact that there's four galuyot. Another famous one is in the Psukim in Daniel. And Daniel, when he's in the time of Nebuchadnezzar in Bavel, and he sees this this statue, this idol, this like, and it says that there's a head, and then there's these arms. It describes how what each arm is made of, and then there's the body, and then there's the legs, and so it's a description. All the commentaries say it's a description of the Arba Malchiot, of the four Malchiot. There's 4 kingdoms, 4 exiles. They're going to make problems with the Jewish people, and so the question is that why isn't Ishmael mentioned in these 4 Malchiot? Okay, so this is the question which is asked by the Rishonim. It's asked by the early commentators, and so interestingly, the Ibn Ezra, so he's actually of the opinion that it's actually Ishmael is the 4th, and he puts Yavan together with Paras, and he puts them together, and that's how he leaves one. But the Ramban has a sefer called Sefer HaGeula, and in the Sefer HaGeula, so he writes that really the Ibn Ezra is incorrect, and the reason why it's not mentioned in the 4 is because Ishmael is different from the other 4 Galiyot. It's different from the other kingdoms, because all 4 Galiyot, so they took their kingship from the Jews. The Jews were the king, and they took their power from the Jews. Okay, and that first they came, and then Paras came and conquered Babylonia, and then Yavan came and conquered that, and then Rome came and conquered that. Rome conquered us directly, but the source of their kingship was of their being in control, was they took the control from us. As opposed to Ishmael, that Ishmael, he didn't take it from us, but rather that he just had it himself. And that's why he's the hardest. That there's a famous Chazal that says that it's based on the pasuk that says that when the Navi tells Rivka that when Rivka is pregnant with Yaakov and Esav, so she's confused, and she goes because the Navi says it's twins. So he says, no, you have twins. Ula'om mila'om yamatz. They're always going to be fighting with each other. So Rashi says, Keshezeh kam zeh nofel. When one's up, the other is down. So that is true when it comes to Esav. When it comes to Esav is Edom. That when it comes to and when we're talking about Rome, what's the most important part of Rome?
Vatican.
The Vatican. Okay, when we're talking about Rome, we're talking about Christianity.
And they also
Okay.
have King David, around King David, they own everything.
Mm-hmm.
Canals.
So we're talking about Edom. Most importantly, we're talking about the arch enemies of the Jews as being the church. And this is the Crusaders, and this is all of the pogroms, and then we have Bnei Ishmael. Okay, the Bnei Ishmael. This is the Arabs. And so by Esav it says Kishzek comes in Afel. When we're up, they're down. When they're up, we're down. Okay. When it comes to Ishmael, it's not like that. When it comes to Ishmael, so they have their own status. They have their own things that they can rely on. Okay. Now, interestingly, like I would have said, if you were to ask me why isn't Ishmael called one of the Malchiot, so I would have said because they're not really a kingdom. They're just a terrorist organization. They're like, look at them. You call that's called a kingdom. It's called a state. But we forget that that's true with the Palestinians here. But the whole Ottoman Empire was the Arabim, was Bnei Ishmael. There's the whole like Iran. They have a malchus. It's not the answer is not that they're not a malchus. The answer is like maybe like this particular part of the battle is people that don't have a malchus whatsoever. So what does this tell us? That it's something we're going to have to talk about much more at length next week. But they I'll tell you one point, and then with this we'll conclude. That
Yeah, no, I just had a question. So the exile, like I've heard of this. I've read up on this before in the Zohar, and I've heard like it's not like a physical exile, as if like we're actually going to physically, the Jews will have to physically leave. It's going to be like.
This is the exile. Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
The exile is that they want to kill us. Absolutely.
Also, from the moment Israel exists, we are in exile of Arabs, or was the start?
We're under the problems of it. We spoke about that before. That the Ramak says that from the reason why they hate us so much is because we made a state. Okay. So one thing that the Chaim Vital explains, and that we're going to speak about this more next week, is that the reason why they don't take their malchus from us, but rather they're able to stand on their own 2 feet, is because they have the bracha from Abraham. They have the bracha from Abraham. What's the bracha from Abraham? That when Hashem told Abraham that you're going to have a big nation, so he didn't believe it. He didn't believe that he's going to have another kid. And he said, Lo Yishmael, Yichya lefanecha. If halavai that Yishmael should live before you. And Hashem answers him, Ul Yishmael shmaticha. And I heard your prayers. I hear you about Ishmael. And yeah, Taka, he's going to be a big nation. But you're going to have another child, and he's going to be Yitzchak, and from that is going to be your main legacy. So from that prayer of Abraham, that Lu Yishmael Yichya lefanecha, from the power of that prayer, that is from where Ishmael derives their strength and their ability to make us problems. Okay, so in other words, that really the battle between the Jews and Ishmael, the Jews and the Arabs, is really a question. We'll go into more. It's really a question: is who is the true heir of Avraham Avinu? Okay, and so if we want to take this on a practical level, what can we do? That on a spiritual level, what can we do to win this war? So what is the crux of the war? So number one, the crux of the war, we said before, is that Yishmael v'yanem, that the entire existence of Yishmael is to put us into a predicament that we're going to need to daven like we've never davened before. But number two is that this is a war of who is going to be the true heir of Avraham Avinu. So how can we win this war? By being the true descendants of Avraham Avinu. To stand for everything that Avraham stood for. To stand for chesed, to stand for emunah, to stand, and we're doing it. We're doing it. The chesed that has been expressed over all parts of the Jewish people, like in these last 2 weeks, is I can't remember a time that it's been like this. It's absolutely amazing, and so this is what Abraham represents, and they are so much the opposite. I can't imagine a greater antithesis of Abraham than the Arab culture. This is just the opposite of chesed, of only caring about yourself and not caring about your own nation, not caring about the people that are suffering. So it's through the chesed that we're doing, that through the emunah and through the chesed, that we are retaining, that we are standing up for the fact that we are the true heirs of Avraham Avinu. And this is what it's all about. That we need to stand up to the world and stand up to Hashem as really being the true descendants of Avraham Avinu, and that is what is going to kick them out. That's going to push them away from their power. So these are the two things. The chesed and tefillah is it's a good start. It's a good start, and so we'll continue next week, B'ezrat Hashem, to understand more of what we know from the sources and how this can be used in a practical way to win this war in the shorish, on the spiritual war, B'ezrat Hashem.